Well, it was back in 2019 that we trialled a little podcast. We called it Pep Talk, the Persuasive Evangelism Podcast, and we got different guests on every fortnight for a short conversation about how they share their faith. And we have had some brilliant guests on over the last few years. People that have talked about sharing their Christian faith with people from different religious backgrounds, different lifestyles, children, youth, students, adults. We've showcased some fantastic evangelistic resources as well. And the episodes that I've had the privilege of being involved in, I've just loved talking to the guests, some brilliant people that we've had on. And we're now approaching almost 200 episodes. I'm not sure when we started out we thought we would do this many, but here we are at nearly 200 episodes. And so we're wondering what you think. What has been most encouraging for you? What's inspired you most? Or are there whole areas of evangelism that we haven't covered that you would love us to talk about? We'd love to hear from you. Go to our website, press the contact button, and let us know what you think. And thank you for being part of Pep Talk over these last few years.
Christians want to see future generations come to know God, but it's one thing teaching our own families, it's another thing altogether reaching other young people. The fact of the matter is that many children today are growing up with little or no contact with the church. So how do you communicate with them well? This is a special extended episode of Pep Talk from Solas, which looks at what our guest today describes as the best kept secret of mission. He'll be talking to us about his efforts to disrupt the normal type of ministry so that more young people hear an engaging Christian message in a school setting. It's a fascinating exchange, which I hope you'll very much enjoy. Welcome to the show. I'm Simon, and I'm delighted that we have a co-presenter today who is also an expert in this field. He is Dave Hutchings, who is often a guest speaker at Solas events like Confident Christianities across the country. He's also an author, and this is actually his first pep talk. Dave, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's actually my second pep talk, Simon, because I was a guest on it once rather than a co-host. It was obviously memorable.
Yes, no, sorry, I did know that. I meant your first as a co-presenter. Sorry, I do apologise. Could you say something a little bit about why you are an expert in this field?
I don't like referring to myself as an expert, so I'll let you do it. And but I've been a physics teacher. I teach GCSE and A-level physics up in the East Riding of Yorkshire, and I've done that for nearly 23 years now. And whilst doing that, I've also run Christian unions in school, and got speakers in, run special events, in the process of running an alpha course now for the staff, and done a lot of thinking about and lots of trial and error about talking about God in the classroom.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you with us, and certainly more of an expert than I am. Perhaps that's what we should leave it with. But we'd love to hear your wisdom on this topic too. But our main guest today who will be sharing is Sam McKee, who is Director of Youth for Christ in Aylesbury Vale. We actually met personally a few weeks ago at an event with the American philosopher and debater William Lane Craig. So it's nice to see you again. Welcome to the show, Sam. How are you?
I'm doing very well this evening. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, it's great to have you here. Could you start by it'd be lovely to hear a little bit about your own story and how you got involved with evangelism in the first place?
I didn't get great A-levels, so I was looking for something to do, and my local Youth for Christ director invited me to do a gap year with him, and then before I knew it, I'd done 3 years there. Then I got invited by my pastor to be our church's first ever youth worker. And I was there for 6 years. Then I went back to Wycombe Youth for Christ for 3 years to run the secondary school side of things. Then I got invited to go and work as a youth pastor, youth evangelist at a church in Beaconsfield. Did that for 4 years. Then I had some time out. That was when I was really sort of struggling with my faith after that. And then the opportunity came to finally be in charge for once with Aylesbury Vale Youth for Christ, and it was a very enticing opportunity. And so I went there 5 years ago, and it's been an incredible ride. Just being able to sort of over the years, I'd thought this works, this doesn't work, someone should really try this, and had never really been able to persuade people to buy into the kinds of ideas I had. Whereas in Aylesbury, I was in charge, had great trustees who were willing to support it, and I thought this is really going to work, and it has.
It sounds a little bit, Sam, like you're the Mikel Arteta of Youth for Christ. You've come in, you've shared your vision, you've asked people to trust the process, and of course, Arsenal have just won a championship under him. What kind of things? What kind of things are you doing with Youth for Christ now? What is happening on the ground, sort of week by week and month by month?
Well, this hasn't aged too well because of politics, but the moniker I got that I really embraced was Elon Musk, which was to disrupt, because I felt that youth mission and ministry urgently needed disrupting. That was the thing I kept saying for a long time. This urgently needs disrupting. In an organization like Youth for Christ, which is, I think, the biggest missional body to young people outside of the church as an organization. There's 60 centres across England, Scotland, and Wales, and has been going for 75 years. Was founded by Billy Graham. It's an organization that is steeped in a lot of tradition and values. And you still have a lot of centres that are doing things like pool tables, table tennis tables, skate parks, detached work, all that sort of thing. But a lot of the models that were still rooted in the 80s and 90s were just far too dated for today. But my biggest problem was reach. Like I have two metrics that I live by. I've got a science background, so I live on data and figures. The two biggest metrics that matter to me are reach as a percentage. How many of the young people in your area do you actually have meaningful contact with? And then frequency of mission opportunity. Like how, and by that I just mean an opportunity to talk meaningfully about faith and the big questions to young people for at least an hour. And so I wanted to create a model that was fluent and efficient and worked in a school's context where you could actually talk about faith matters to large numbers of young people a lot. Like every week, stop dealing with tens and 20s and start dealing with hundreds and thousands was the mantra I just kept repeating in my first year at Youth for Christ. And a lot of people said that can't be done. It's not possible. You can't talk about faith in schools anymore. I said, you can, you just have to change the way you do it. It's got to be valuable. It's got to be, it has to be something the school would be proud of. And so I set about trying to build the most disruptive model possible that was efficient. And we had to be efficient in Aylesbury because we're the smallest centre. It is just me. And we have a tiny budget. We operate at a deficit most months. So how can you do something that can reach 13 to 15,000 students each year at scale in a way that really, really makes a difference?
Great, that's a great question. And so what is the answer there? So you're saying you're giving something of value. So what is that, and how have you done that? Because I think some people will think surely schools have loads of rules and an overtly Christian ministry trying to gain access. That's never going to get off the ground. But so how did you get around and show that it was valuable and all the things you just mentioned?
Yeah, I love schools. I'm biased. I'm married to a teacher. And schools mean a great deal to me. School was one of my happiest places in my life. I see us as serving schools, but when you talk to youth organizations about serving schools, they go, oh, well, you should do mentoring, or you should do chaplaincy, or you could do prayer spaces in schools, or you can run lunchtime clubs and after school clubs. All that stuff is good if you're not trying to reach hundreds and thousands of people. If your model is pastoral, then yes, you can do that stuff. But Youth for Christ's model is supposed to be a missional one, which is where you are actually talking about faith and you are actually trying to engage young people and staff and everyone connected with schools. So I'm passionate about enrichment. I know schools are really competing hard with each other over enrichment, which is, what do we offer our students that's at no cost to them, that means that our school is a really special, privileged place to be. Like, I don't see these schools as a means to an end. I love these schools. I love every school in my town. And I want them to thrive, and I want the students to have an incredible experience there. So my model was, let's give them just the best enrichment. Let's corner the market on it that no one else can compete with. And so I drew on every single contact I had, every professor, lecturer, researcher, doctor, scientist, engineer, a couple of astronauts, like everyone I knew who was just going to be the most incredible person. Bring them to Aylesbury for a day, take them to school after school after school, and have them speak to packed hall after packed hall after packed hall of hundreds and hundreds and thousands of students in a day. I think for years 2 to 4 of my time there, the average reach per day was about 2,500 students. So we were reaching about a third of all the young people in Aylesbury on a weekly basis for at least an hour. That's just unthinkable to people. And yeah, we broke every single record Youth for Christ has ever had very, very quickly. But what we want, it's not a means to an end. I want the school to absolutely love what we're doing and say, gosh, everything's changed since you've been here. We're so lucky to have you. We can't thank you enough. You're the best thing that happened to us. So we were bringing professors from Oxford and Cambridge who had a living faith, who would come and speak in the school for an hour. Sometimes it was just on what their discipline was, and faith wasn't a big part of it, but students knew they were a Christian. Sometimes it would be tied into a particular theme or a big question, like science and religion, for example, or consciousness or meaning, purpose, value, those sorts of things. It's not too difficult to find touch points with the RE department or the philosophy department. And I will just say something on that as well. In a lot of schools, RE and philosophy is like a C-class subject. It's kind of a bottom tier subject. The sciences and the arts get everything they want. They can do lots of trips each year. They can do lots of big events, and those events are the cornerstone of the school year. RE and philosophy really have to fight for real estate in their school. They're not seen as major subjects. If you can add value to that department, you're doing them a wonderful favor, and they will love you forever because you're helping them have that real estate. So if I brought a professor of philosophy from Oxford or Cambridge for a day, suddenly the RE department is the big thing that week or that month. And that goes a long way. They really appreciate that. And I love seeing that as someone who's married to an RE teacher. So you're serving the school in a way where you can talk about faith, where instead of the school worrying and panicking about, is this going to upset or offend people? What does this mean for how we operate? They clap and they take photos and they put those photos on social media and they tell their governors and they tell the parents and they tell Ofsted and they own it with pride and joy. And, you're seeing on social media, thank you so much to Aylesbury Youth For Christ for making this wonderful thing happen. And so the guess is the big thing. The other thing is we partnered with Premier Christian Radio over their show Unbelievable. And I can get into that, but I'm conscious you might have some questions about everything I've just mentioned.
Well, I think something that occurs to me, Sam, is, you've driven this, you've had a vision, you've got this kind of drive, you've got some of these connections already, and you yourself, you're an academic, you know that world, you're very switched on, you're massively qualified. It might be that someone's listening to the podcast and thinking, well, I would like to have that level of impact. I'd like to be able to help out in that sort of way. I'd like to volunteer for my local Youth for Christ. But I can't do what Sam's just described. He's kind of like a unicorn. How would you encourage them? Can they do it too?
Oh, yeah, certainly. So I... when you're called Youth for Christ, schools are very wary of you at the beginning. And Aylesbury was particularly unreached in terms of there was very little connection between the centre and the schools historically. There were a handful of schools that my predecessor had gone in, but some schools hadn't had a Christian go in them this century when I got there. And when your organisation is called Youth for Christ, a lot of schools are just like, no, thank you, not interested at all, don't want to meet you, don't want to talk to you. And I understand that. It wasn't the fact that I have a bunch of degrees and I'm a scientist and an academic that got me through the door. It was holding up these people and saying, look, I've got Professor, John Smith, who's professor of medicine at Cambridge, in town for a day. Here's their academic page. Here's their book. Here's their qualifications. Is there a window of an hour where you would want them to come by the school and speak to your students? There's no cost. It's already accounted for. Would be delighted to bring them by. And it just started with that simple service, no cost. I never charge schools. Anyone can do that. And a lot of centres across the Youth for Christ movement are doing that now. Yes, I had the connections because of my own academic life. I just happened to meet a lot of Christians who are scientists. I think it's important for us to understand this is probably the best kept secret in this country. We have an obscenely large amount of extraordinary Christian professors, lecturers, scientists, researchers, and the church has no idea who they are. They don't understand that we're sitting on top of a gold mine. The world knows who they are. Academia knows who they are. But particularly on the science side, we've got tons of major academics from places like Oxford and Cambridge. We've got lots of fellows of the Royal Society. We've got lots of award winners, people who lead major journals, people who've done incredible work in their field, people who a school would bite your hand off to have come in and speak to their students. And the church just doesn't know who they are. And I have a vested interest in changing that. Also in the humanities, we've got lots of them as well. But I just invite them, and when they understand what it is, I've got a list of probably about 100 names of people who would love to come and speak in your school. You just have to invite them and make them available to schools.
Hi, it's Gavin from SOLAS here. We hope that you are enjoying today's discussion about evangelism. But did you know that SOLAS also produces a wide range of digital resources to help you share the gospel in the online spaces you inhabit? Short reels, 1-minute shorts for Instagram and Snapchat, delivering the gospel helpfully and in tune with the way that people want to receive it today. 5-minute short answer videos, perfect for Facebook, and online blogs and church websites, and more. And it's all there for you to use at our website. Come and have a look at solas-cpc.org. And now, back to the programme.
And so at these events, you've obviously mentioned your vision behind them. What are you actually trying to achieve? Are you trying just to get people thinking about the Christian faith? Are you trying to convert people? Are you trying to show the credibility of Christianity through the academics? Or are you actually trying to do all kinds of different things? I'd be interested just to know, is there an overarching vision in one sense? I appreciate you have to be careful what you can and can't say in schools.
Yeah, you can't convert someone. That's a work of the Holy Spirit. And personally, I really don't care if someone becomes a Christian as a teenager or when they're middle-aged or when they're retired. It's to use the parable of the sower analogy. It's just about sowing seed. The only thing you can control to some extent is reach. And so my metrics are really, really simple. My core value is that every young person in the area within my responsibility, which for me is the Aylesbury Vale area, is at least reached by our centre. And this is important to understand because I don't understand it myself, is that a lot of churches or youth organisations, they have a strategy at the start of the year. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. This is the work we do. This is the resource we have. And you look at that strategy and you realize that if they do it that year, they will reach 15% of their area. And I can't live with that. Like, you mean to tell me at the start of the year, you know that 85% of the young people in your area are not going to hear anything about God this year? Like, how do you do that? I aim for 100% every year. That may not be possible, but there's 11 schools in our region, and we want to have contact with all of them and be able to offer them at the programs that we run and try and make sure we have an audience of 100%. And if you're consistent and you hit it and you hit it again, you do it and do it again, you can do that. I mean, in my second year, we had a reach of 87%. Now, that may never, ever happen again. We did hit 81% the year after. That's incredibly difficult to do, but it shows it's possible. You know, about 13,000 students we had contact with for at least an hour where we were talking about faith. And that's what you should do. That's the only thing I'm trying to do, is raise the conversation, raise the big questions, bring pause for thought, open up the conversation with expertise, with the very best people, in a way that the school values, is grateful for, appreciates, and is partnering with. I don't think it's rocket science. Wait, I was explaining this to another center, actually. I said, it's not rocket science. And they pointed out the fact that my guest that previous Wednesday had literally been a rocket scientist. I said, except for last week, when it was rocket science.
Yeah, I guess they probably couldn't say it's not brain surgery either, because you probably had one of those in.
Yeah, definitely.
You've talked about how the schools are incredibly grateful and that they will jump at it. What about the response of the students? Are they more? We keep hearing young people are more open nowadays, and that certainly has been my experience in across my career, that there's an openness amongst young people to listen to ideas they might not have listened to 10, 15 years ago. Are you getting good response and a good set of questions in the Q&A sessions from students, or do they look like they've been dragged along by a teacher?
Yeah, I really don't see that. I really don't see hostility. The way we do it, people find it stimulating and interesting. We've got a lot of grammar schools in our area and some very high achieving schools. We never struggle with the pitch there doing the academic stuff, but sometimes with the schools that can get forgotten and left behind, the sort of the lower achieving ones, we do try and be a bit more creative and find ways of pitching things in a way that they can engage with and understand. But people always underestimate those schools. They're still just as amazed at meeting a professor from Oxford and Cambridge as anybody. And the staff love that, because the grammar schools get everything. You know, the high achieving schools get everything. And when you choose to bring someone so incredible to them, they love that as well. And I love doing that. An astronaut is a universal language. Everyone speaks and loves space. Each of the last 5 years, we've brought at least one astronaut along to speak in the schools. And that is just all about wonder. And that's not like a directly missional thing. It's just wonder making. And every school loves that. And those have probably been my favorite days. Yeah, man, I could tell you so many stories. But on the response, the Q&A, I mentioned that we partner with Premier Christian Radio. When Justin Brierley was still there, their top show is called Unbelievable. And Unbelievable is one of the biggest platforms on the planet for debate and discussion between atheists and Christians. And I said to Justin, you do these shows in a studio in London. Would you ever do it in a school where the students are a live audience? And he loved that. So we did some pilots with him, but then he left Premiere, and we connected with the producers and said, could we do this? And it just works so well. These debates, the way you do them in a conversational format, they're anti-cancel culture. You're modeling healthy disagreement to the students. You get experts from both sides. You can get amazing guests because people want to be on a show of that caliber. And it's at no cost to the school, and schools love them. And it accidentally became our prime vehicle of mission. I think in our second year we did 5. Our third year we did 18. Then we did 30 last year, which was almost one a week for the school year. We've done about 25 this year. And we've had some of the biggest atheists in the world come to Aylesbury. Aylesbury ended up sort of becoming astronaut central and debate central, which was great. But we've taken these all over the country: Coventry Youth for Christ, Kenilworth Youth for Christ, Rugby Youth for Christ, Wycombe Youth for Christ, Tunbridge Wells Youth for Christ in a couple of weeks. So it works everywhere, and it's great fun. And the questions you get there are wonderful when you do that. The students really, I can't speak highly enough about doing that as part of your program. But part of that is we don't shy away from the tough questions. Schools love questions like, why is there so much suffering in the world if God is good? And you're bringing in an atheist. You have both perspectives. You're giving a platform to the atheists. So it's not seen as evangelism or proselytizing, because it isn't. It's a conversation that the students are invited into. One of the most popular debate topics we go for is AI and what it means to be human. What does it mean to be human in an age of artificial intelligence? One other popular one is science and religion in the future, based on books by people like Yuval Noah Harari and Steven Pinker. As society gets more technologically advanced, what's it, with genetic engineering and artificial intelligence, spacefaring, personalized medicine, robotics, as society gets more advanced, what place is religion going to have in that future? But what's it going to mean to be human in that future as well? Is a wonderful topic that everyone loves, and it opens up the big questions, and people are interested, not hostile. They're provoked in all the right ways.
Absolutely. And actually, I should say the reason we have you on the show today is because Andy Bannister did an event with Premier that you organised with an imam talking about Islam and Christianity. And he was also buzzing about just the experience of doing that. And you not only had the school, but as you say, it was going out on the radio and online as well and reaching a lot more people. I wondered,
it's amazing to think we do a debate in a school, and yes, there'll be like 100 to 500 students in the hall, depending on how many year groups you get. But there'll be 200,000 people hearing it through podcast or YouTube or the live broadcast.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And do you know, though, what reaction? You said you obviously hear some great questions. Do you have examples of people either coming to faith or moving in their journey? Do you get to see that side of things, especially if you're going, doing an event and then maybe disappearing and not coming back for a little bit of time? Do you ever hear that side of things?
Yeah, that's a funny one to gauge, because I think the thing that puts people off the way I do things the most is it's very, very impersonal and not pastoral. I never know kids' names. I maybe recognize some faces, but because I'm dealing with hundreds and hundreds and thousands on a weekly basis across 11 schools, I don't really get to know young people very much. And no one really gets into youth work to not get to know young people. So I don't hear that many stories myself, but the stories do get through. It's only the tip of the iceberg. But young people do constantly say, oh, yes, I changed my mind on this. I'm going to church now. I'm taking my parents. And that's always like really amazing to hear that someone's really given thought to what has been said and been impacted. But I think the main experience I get is people are thinking and changing their mind a lot. One thing you certainly gauge is the atmosphere. When I started 5 years ago, any talk about faith, particularly in the religious schools like the Catholic school and the Church of England school, was met with scoffing and laughter and almost as if I needed to grow up. There's just a sneery sarcasm and a casual dismissal. There is none of that now. That died years ago. It's remarkable how quickly it changed. And that's because there's only so many times that a teenager can meet a world-class scientist or professor from Oxford and Cambridge who's got a living faith and think that this is stupid and dumb and only for stupid people who've been brainwashed. Like you oversaturation. Aylesbury's been oversaturated with so many academics who have a living faith that has died. That doesn't exist anymore in our town. One of the producers from Premier said casually, no young person in Aylesbury would dare say that science has made belief in God impossible. And I said, oh, that's very interesting. Why do you say that? And she's just said oversaturation. And that you can see. So the temperature has changed. The atmosphere has changed. The kind of conversations you have about faith have changed. And the frequency of those conversations has gone up dramatically. It's now very, very normal to talk about faith in more academic and intellectual terms. It's a more thought through conversation with young people in our town because of what's happened in the last 5 years. That is extremely noticeable. That's obvious. It is just different having those conversations in Aylesbury than it is to other places. I have seen a lot of teachers become Christians in the last few years. That's always really interesting. And those stories, they're a journey, because you forget sometimes that actually teachers are listening to everything as well.
Yeah, very true. When they're not trying to get a bit of marking done at the back on the quiet.
Yes.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. It's a shame we can't carry on talking. I just love your passion and your vision, both your sort of how you're trying to get the scale up, but also the quality. It's sort of quantity and quality. And it does make me think that need to get our kids into Aylesbury catchment area of schools. But actually, it would be wonderful, wouldn't it, if every area in Britain is covered with such good content. And I know it's easier to do in certain places, but as you say, there are that you can get people into places, and Aylesbury isn't the obvious place either. So it's wonderful to hear what you're doing.
Yeah. So. I mean, a great place to start. You do have organizations that are committed to this. So I'd point people to the Faraday Institute for Science and Religion. Always have a look at the people they have, and you can email them. They have a youth and schools team. Then there's the Oxford Centre for Christian Apologetics. They've got some people who are very skilled at speaking to young people, and some of them are quite qualified and have done some good stuff themselves. Then there's obviously I point people to SOLAS. They'll be able to tell you some interesting people. Andy knows lots of people. I invite David to speak in your school. And then there's Christians in Science. I'm on the board of Christians in Science. We've got so many incredible people, and I lean on them very heavily for my guests. So that, go look in these places. There's plenty of people around.
Thank you so much. Yeah, well, it's really encouraging to hear all the work that's going on. And I'll just finish by saying, actually, in my own teenage son, there was an event put on by a world-leading American scientist. He's in a school that doesn't get these kinds of speakers very often. And it was actually a combined school event. And he went and absolutely loved it. And he particularly liked just the encouragement of hearing this really, really top-rate academic saying why he believed, and also sharing stuff about the science as well. And it was a huge encouragement. So thank you so much, Sam, for sharing that amazing vision. It's very, very exciting. And thank you, Dave, also for being with us. And thank you all very much for listening. Do tune in again in a couple of weeks when we'll have another inspiring guest on the Pep Talk from SOLAS. Bye-bye for now.